Our DNAs store so much information about us, our ancestors, and our health. I've always been curious about where my ancestors are from, what are my health risks, and I heard that online you can look at your DNA and take a genetic test. There we go. In today's video, I'm going to share with you what I found out.
I am not Chinese 100%. So when you had dementia at 94, 95, I'm not too worried about it. Welcome back to my channel. This is Miss Ming. In my channel, I do a variety of lifestyle videos, vlog videos, unboxing haul videos, Costco, Trader Joe's food review videos, and Amazon videos, all that good jazz. So if you like this content, make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you won't miss out any future content. Alright, so today's video is going to be a little bit different because I want to share my experience of taking a DNA test. Ta-da! So I think before Christmas in last year in 2021, my friend told me about this genetic test which is called 23AndMe. And I was just like, I don't know how I felt. I was like a little bit skeptical. And I also felt like, what information can I get it from? Like, it's not a cheap test for $100. And I knew I came from China. I am originally from China and I came to the United States. I didn't know what to expect, so I decided to take the test. If you buy one, get a second one 30% off. So I decided to purchase this test and also get one for my husband so that we can both take it at the same time. And actually the results, it's pretty shocking. So in today's video, I want to share with you my genetics test results. I took the test with 23andMe. I know they're different brands, but it's just the one that my friend was doing, and he was doing like a sale for Christmas. The test took pretty long. It didn't take long for me to get the box. So how it works is that you receive a box and the instructions, and you basically register, you download the app, registered your basic information, and then you basically spit into a tube. So that's your DNA. That's your, you have to collect some DNA from your saliva, and you just put some stabilizer and then mail it back. It actually took pretty long for them to process my kit, but what I love about it is that it gives you a timeline, and they tell you like this step takes about 3 to 10 days, and sometimes it takes 3, sometimes it takes 10, because like maybe sometimes there are more people trying to take the test, so they have to process more. So I like the fact that there are expectations over it, but it took me over a month to get my test results. You could get just the ancestry test, but you can also get ancestry plus the health. I decided to get both because when I first took it, I was like, I don't need to know my ancestry because I know where it came from. I immigrated from China. All right, so now let's look at my ancestry composition. I am only 85% Chinese. That's interesting. So apparently I am 85% Chinese, 7% Korean, and 5% Manchurian and Mongolian. I am not Chinese 100%, which is very, very interesting. But it kind of makes sense because I was born in a town that's very close to Korea, and also where I live, there are also a lot of South Koreans living there. It makes sense that part of my ancestry came from South Korea. Actually, it's pretty interesting. Like, it shows that where I come from is from Seoul, highly likely from Seoul or Jeollabuk-do, Daegu, and Changcheon-namdo. So it makes sense because I was not born in Beijing, although I consider my hometown Beijing. I wasn't born there, and actually half of my family came from northern China, or like northern area of Asia. So it makes sense that I'm not 100% Chinese because I could be either North Korean or South Korean, but it's highly likely that I come from Seoul or Daegu, which is really, really, really cool. And it's also interesting growing up that my mom worked at a Korean restaurant, and I always ate Korean food growing up, and my mom knows. Oh, also something crazy is where I come from, everyone knows how to make kimchi. So it also speaks to my ancestry that, like, okay, so my ancestors taught us how to make kimchi. Well, it stopped at my generation because I never learned. So with my 85% Chinese, it's actually pretty interesting because my grandparents came from different regions, and my other side, my paternal side, since I'm single parent, I didn't know much about my father's side of grandparents, and it seems like they may come from Guangdong and other places because they actually live in Shanxi, but not like it doesn't show in my list. They probably migrated to that place. So the most interesting part is actually my 5% from Northern Asian. So Northern Asian ancestry reflects a history of rapid, widespread human migrations across the vast Central Asian plains, along with the plateaus and waterways of Siberia. So I have 5% of Manchurians and Mongolian genes. So this is something crazy because I always knew I am kind of Manchurian/Mongolian because I know my grandparents' family. So there's something crazy about my grandma's grandma or my great grandma. So my grandma actually spoke Manchurian. I didn't know a later stage of her life. So what happened was that my great-grandma's father was directly related to the emperor of Qing dynasty in one of the later dynasties. And because he carried the royal blood, if he disagreed with the emperor, he had the power to overturn the emperor because he is also from the direct yellow line of Manchuria. So how it works with Manchurian is that they're different colored flags, and the yellow flags is actually the flag that's in dominance. So my great-grandma's father was actually directly related to the bloodline of the emperor. So when he disagreed with the emperor was kind of like, it's kind of like Game of Thrones. He was worried that his cousin or his brother will overturn him. So he decided to order my entire ancestors' family to die. Essentially, how they did it back then is that they will give you poison and you will kill yourself, and they will come back at certain time to count the number of bodies in the house, like how many women, how many men, and how many children, how many boys and how many girls. So to respect your dignity, they're not gonna kill you like in front of other people. They are not going to sentence you to death. They're just going to give you, and then they're going to tell everyone that you had like some sort of disease, and then the entire family died from this infectious disease. That's how it worked back then. There were 2 servants. They were so loyal to the family that they decided to sacrifice their own children so that they replaced 2 children of the family and sacrificed their own children. And so their own children died, but my great-grandma and her brother could live. So it was a crazy story. So they lived and they just changed their ethnicity. They never spoke their own language in Manchurian ever again. And they were able to survive. So they changed their last name to change everything. So on the ethnicity, like every time they report, they just report that they're from the Han. They report a totally different bloodline. So it never shows, this bloodline of Manchurian never shows in any of the documentations of my family tree, because the family tree traced back to a different family compared to their original family that related to the emperor. So my grandma grew up speaking Manchurian, but she was not allowed to speak or identify herself like as Manchurian just in case of the politics and stuff, especially later when the monarchy was overturned. They worried that too. So when they told me the story, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is like something that only happens in the movies. There is no way that's true, because it doesn't show on the documentations. It was just like a story that they passed down through generations until I did the test. I am actually 5% Manchurian and Mongolian, and considering like how my family like tree going from my great grandma and all the way to me, it makes sense it's only a small percentage. So this is crazy. I always knew that I may be Manchurian because in the history, they were studying the human jaws and they were saying like the Northern Asian Manchurian or Mongolian, they have like a jawline right here that's like super, like it's like a square. And then my friends, they were like, hey Ming, you actually had that too. And I was like, it's just my face. But I actually had some of the features of my ancestors, so I was always suspicious, but this test actually helped me to confirm the story that I was in disbelief. I was telling my friends, but I never really like 100% believed that I'm part of Manchurian, but it was true. And the fact that like the reason why it's identified as Manchurian / Mongolian is because Mongolian and Manchurian, they're actually in alliance. So like in tests, in genetic tests, it's very like easy that we have like mingled up because like we are allies. We like kind of merge in families and stuff back then against the Hun. So that was like, whew, that was crazy. All right, so if we look at the mainland China, I am the number one was Zhejiang, which is where my grandpa comes from. And then Jiangsu is also where he comes from, and there's like Shanghai. And my grandma came from Liaoning, and then the other part probably is my paternal family tree. But it's pretty cool that it doesn't just give me the fact that I'm from China. It also gives me like there are different administrative regions you're likely to be part of here, and it's really cool because I didn't know where my father's side came from, and now I think they probably came from Guangdong. So that was pretty cool. It also gives me the health highlights, so I ordered a bundle of my Ancestry and Health. So with the health thing, there were some of the health thing you have to pay extra. I did notice that I have an increased likelihood of type 2 diabetes. So that is actually a very high risk of having diabetes between the age of 31 and 80. This is actually pretty crazy because diabetes don't run in my family. I only know one person in my family that actually had diabetes, like which is my grandma, who actually had like other diseases. But this is crazy. My genetic likelihood is higher than typical, but overall likelihood also depends on other factors in life. So this is also something interesting because normally when I look at this, I'll be like, oh, what's the odd? Like nobody in my family had diabetes except for one person. But interestingly, like 3 months ago, I started to wear a continuous glucose monitor on my arm. I got that idea from a friend because we're all fitness oriented people. Like I just wanted to track my data, and holy moly, it was crazy. Like sometimes after eating certain carbs such as corn and vegan meat, my glucose could spike to 268, which is way beyond diabetic level. But normally it would just tone down to 100 or under 100 in terms of my fasting glucose. My fasting glucose has always been under 100 or just 100, borderline to pre-diabetic. I have some insane glucose spike, and then sometimes when I have glucose spikes, I have symptoms. Like I started to have shakiness, my heart rate goes high. I want to take preventative measures when it comes to preventing type 2 diabetes, knowing that genetically I have 44%. It's like half and half. Let's flip a coin. But there's so many other factors, exercise, diet. I just have to be very careful. So I'm super grateful that I actually took this test. Another interesting fact is that a lot of things are, I don't want to say determined by genetics, but heavily affected by genetics. So I've always been a night owl, and since I was little, I had a hard time waking up going to school. Like it's just like, it's like killing a pig based on what my grandpa said. Like my grandpa's like, I love you, but you in the morning, it's like a bear. It's impossible to wake you up to go to school. They almost had to dress me up, put food in my mouth, and then I can just wake up. So I've watched a TED Talk a long time ago talking about morning people. Like they were saying based on our ancestry, like some people were born to be a night owl versus others are born to be a morning person. So the society schedule may not work for everyone, and that is me. So my people with my genetics in their 30s wake up on average around 8:30 a.m. on their days off, and that is so true. Like on my weekends and on my holidays, I wake up after 8:30, usually between 8:30 to 9. So basically, like, there are different places in your DNA that are associated with either being a morning person or night person. I know I've watched some morning routine videos by some YouTubers. They were like, I used to not be a morning person, but hey, I can do it. And believe you me, I've tried, and on some days it does work. I like to have a long morning before going to work, but I hate to wake up super early. I can only do it like once or twice a week. And this actually confirms. So this doesn't mean that I can be a morning person. This just means that my mornings start a little bit late. Like, I can wake up at 7 and be okay, but waking up at 5, well, I could do that too, but not for a long time. So it gives you some interesting facts about your health preposition, your carrier status. So it basically detects if you have like variant that predicts you for certain diseases, which is pretty cool. And it also says that I have slightly increased risk to celiac disease and late onset of Alzheimer's disease. It's slightly increased risk, which I'm not too worried about. But my great-grandma actually had Alzheimer's disease. And then my grandpa is 95. So when you have dementia at 94, 95, I'm not too worried about this. So I like the fact that it gives me like certain risk, and it tells you that, hey, even if you have this risk, don't worry too much about it. It also gives me like wellness, like alcohol flush reaction, it's likely to flush. So it says based on my genetics, I'm likely to flush because people with my genetic results cannot process alcohol normally. I am allergic to alcohol. When I drink alcohol enough, I have rashes, I have like hives. I know some people who have this genes, they can still drink a little bit, but personally, I just can't drink at all. And it's likely that I can be lactose intolerant. I'm more likely to be able to match a musical pitch, which means I can sing well. And whether you have likely to have a bunion, and if you have fear of heights. The interesting fact that these are insanely accurate. I have a crazy fear of heights. That when I go hiking, it's just like impossible for me to go on certain hikes just because of my fear. And I have other fears, like it says I have fear of public speaking, which is true. I always had a fear of public speaking when I was younger, but I conquered it. But with the fear of heights, I was just like, I can't. I would rather not go on a hike or just stay at home quarantine than going on a hike that I have to go down. It's just super scary for me. And then I prefer salty than sweet as well. And I am more likely to bit more than others. And this one is so cool because I was watching a TED Talk too about mosquito bites, and I was watching like a science video about like there are certain genes predict like always get mosquito bites, and I'm likely to have a motion sickness. Another interesting fact is that based on my genetics, my genetic muscle composition is common in elite power athletes, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's actually true that I actually don't do heavy weights at the gym, and as long as I do some resistance training and weights, like my muscle just show up. Like now I know probably it's because of genetics. So it just speaks a lot about like we are all born differently. Just because certain things work out for certain people doesn't mean that it will work out for everyone just because of the genetics. I really enjoyed that. So interesting and so cool to find out information about my DNAs.
There are also other interesting factors you can find out about yourself, such as how much genes you carry that's related to the prehistoric human. I thought that was pretty cool. And you can also look at your maternal group, and it turned out that my ancestors, maybe part of them, they're the groups that actually built the terracotta soldiers, which I thought was super cool. Well, these are the things that I think you can find out for free, but they also have a 23andMe Plus plan where you can find out more information about your health. You do have to pay $29 per year, and they do give you like maybe new updated report based on your data or something. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna cancel it after paying this. So after filming this video, I decided to actually give it a try because I was just worried that maybe like I can find out certain risk about certain disease and I can take preventive measures. It turned out that I'm actually pretty normal and there's nothing new I find out about myself. To be honest, I do want to say after I paid the $29 and getting the results, I felt like maybe it's not worth it to pay the extra simply because I felt like a lot of things about heart health and other things like cholesterol and these things you can find out from your annual doctor's visit. Like if you have a higher than usual cholesterol, probably you have high risk. So I pretty much know about these already, and I have lower than normal cholesterol just because I usually live pretty healthy. So I do think that maybe I didn't need to pay extra $29 just to find out that I have normal G's, compared to like my annual doctor's visit pretty much told me the same story. But still, I would say that if you actually find out like you have certain risks, maybe, I don't know, like the opposite may be worth it, I would say. I don't know. But so far, I felt like it didn't provide me anything that I didn't know because a lot of them are my health information and I already know from my doctors.
So yeah, after we review the results about myself, I would love to give you my honest review. I think this test for me was like $130, and for me and my husband together, I think it came down to $230. It's definitely on the expensive side. Do I think it's worth it? I definitely think it's worth it because personally, I was able to find out about my ancestry, like it's more than what I thought, and also it was able to confirm a story that runs down from the family that I was in disbelief about. Also, I love the fact that it gives me like any risk of any health factors. I always knew I was prone to type 2 diabetes just because of my blood tests. Like when I went to the doctor was always like, they're always like, what? You look so healthy. Your other physical tests were like all amazing and you have high glucose? That's crazy. But it's true. And now that I can be more peace that like, hey, I do need to be a little bit more careful than normal. So I think it's worth it to understand and find out more information about myself, my ancestors, and my health and any risk factors, and so I can just like adjust my lifestyle just for the biggest benefits and live the longest and healthiest and happiest. So yeah, so that is my story taking a genetics test. I did it with 23andMe. I haven't tried the other ones, so comment down below if you have tried other things, other brands like Ancestry.com, I believe. So comment down below, and if you have taken genetics tests before, please comment down below what you think of them. Do you think it's worth it? What is the most interesting fact that you found out about yourself? Alright, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, listening to my stories, and let me know if you're open to try something like this, if you think it's worth the money as well, so we can, share our opinions as well. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure you ring the notification bell so that you won't miss out any future content, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!